I stared at my phone, reading the text from my mother for the third time. We need to talk. Family dinner tonight. 6 p.m. Don't be late. I should have felt excited. After 3 years of barely speaking to them, maybe this was finally the olive branch I'd been waiting for. Maybe they'd finally accepted that I was happy with my choices, that my life didn't need to look like theirs to be valid. I texted back a simple, "I'll be there," and spent the rest of the afternoon rehearsing what I'd say. I'd tell them about the promotion I just got at the hospital, Chief of Pediatric Surgery at 32. The youngest in the hospital's history. I'd worked 70-hour weeks for 5 years to get here, missing holidays, birthdays, every family gathering. But it was worth it. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled into my parents' driveway at 5:58 p.m. Through the window, I could see my older sister Diane setting the table, her perfect blonde hair swept into an elegant bun. My younger brother Marcus was already seated, scrolling through his phone. The scene looked so normal, so much like the family dinners we used to have before everything fell apart. "You actually came," my mother said when she opened the door. Her tone was flat, unreadable. "Of course I came. You said you wanted to talk." She didn't smile, just turned and walked toward the dining room. I followed, my stomach knotting with each step. Everyone was already seated when I walked in. My father at the head of the table, my mother to his right, Diane and Marcus on the left side. The only empty chair was at the far end, isolated. "Sit down, Claire," my father said, not sweetheart or honey like he used to call me, just Claire. I sat, forcing a smile. "So, I have some good news to share. I got promoted last week. I'm the new Chief of Pediatric Surgery at Memorial. The youngest they've ever had." The silence that followed felt like a physical weight pressing down on my chest. Diane was the first to speak. "That's nice. Nice. 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency, 5 years of proving myself in one of the most competitive fields in medicine. And all I got was, 'That's nice.' I thought you'd be happy for me," I said, hating how small my voice sounded. My mother set down her water glass with deliberate precision. "Happy? You want us to be happy that you chose work over family? Again? I didn't choose work over family. I chose a career that saves children's lives. You chose to miss your grandmother's funeral." Diane cut in. Her voice was sharp, accusatory. "You couldn't take 1 day off for that. But you want us to celebrate you now?" The guilt hit me like a physical blow. I was in the middle of a surgery, a 6-year-old with a brain tumor. I couldn't just leave. "There are other surgeons," my mother said coldly. There was only one grandmother. I felt tears prickling behind my eyes, but I wouldn't cry. "Not here. Not in front of them." "Fine," I said, standing up. My chair scraped loudly against the hardwood floor. "I get it. I'll just go." "Sit down," my father commanded. His voice was different, harder than I'd ever heard it. "We're not done." Something in his tone made me freeze. This wasn't just about the funeral. Something else was happening here. I sat back down slowly. My father pulled out a folder from beside his chair and slid it across the table toward me. "We've been talking. As a family. And we've made a decision." My hands shook as I opened the folder. Inside were legal documents, dense with text I couldn't immediately process. "What is this?" "It's a contract," Diane said. She was smiling now, but it wasn't kind. "We want you to sign it." I scanned the pages, trying to make sense of the legal jargon. Words jumped out at me. Relinquish, severance, no further contact. "This is a family estrangement agreement," I said, my voice hollow. "You want me to legally agree to never contact any of you again?" "It's for the best," my mother said. She wasn't even looking at me. "You've made it clear that we're not your priority. This just makes it official. But I'm still your daughter. Your sister. You stopped being part of this family a long time ago," Marcus said. He'd been quiet until now, and his words hurt more than anyone else's. "We used to be close, before medical school consumed my life." I looked around the table at their faces. Cold. Resolved. United against me. "And if I don't sign?" My father leaned back in his chair. "Then we'll make things difficult for you. You know Dr. Richardson on the hospital board? He's been a family friend for 30 years. One word from us about your instability, your inability to maintain relationships, your abandonment of family responsibilities during crisis situations. The threat hung in the air, crystal clear. You'd sabotage my career? We'd tell the truth, Diane said sweetly. That you're so obsessed with work you can't maintain basic human connections. That you prioritize strangers over family. That you missed your own grandmother's funeral because you refused to let anyone else handle your responsibilities. Sounds like someone with control issues, doesn't it? Maybe even narcissistic personality disorder. My blood ran cold. In medicine, reputation was everything. One whisper campaign could destroy everything I'd built. I need time to think about this, I managed to say. You have until tomorrow night, my father said. Sign it, or deal with the consequences. I grabbed the folder and walked out, leaving my untouched dinner behind. No one tried to stop me. I drove home in a daze, my mind spinning. How had we gotten here? I knew I'd been absent. I knew I'd missed important moments. But to be formally exiled from my own family? That night? I couldn't sleep. I kept reading the contract over and over, trying to find some loophole, some way out. But it was airtight. If I signed, I'd agree to never contact them, never attend family events, never even mention our relationship publicly. In exchange, they'd leave my career alone. The next morning, I called in sick for the first time in 2 years. I couldn't focus, couldn't function. I spent hours staring at the contract, a pen in my hand, unable to decide. My phone buzzed around noon. A text from Diane. Made your choice yet? Clock's ticking. Then another from Marcus. Mom's already talked to Dr. Richardson. Just for your information. Panic flooded through me. They were actually doing it. They were actually going to destroy my career. I grabbed my phone and called the hospital, asking to be connected to Dr. Richardson's office. His secretary said he was in meetings all day. When I asked if I could schedule something urgent, she paused. Dr. Richardson left a note that he's not taking meetings with you until further notice. My stomach dropped. Did he say why? No, Dr. Harper, I'm sorry. They'd already gotten to him. Whatever they'd told him, it was enough to make him refuse to even see me. I spent the rest of the day in a fog. By evening, I'd made my decision. I couldn't let them destroy everything I'd worked for. I'd sign the contract, and I'd move on. Maybe it was better this way. At least I'd know where I stood. I was getting ready to drive back to their house when my doorbell rang. Standing on my porch was Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman who lived 3 houses down. In her arms was her grandson, Tommy, who I'd operated on last year to remove a benign tumor from his spine. Dr. Harper, she said, her face pale with worry. Tommy's been having terrible headaches. The pain is so bad he can't stop crying. I called his pediatrician, but they can't see him until next week. I know this is inappropriate, showing up at your home, but you saved his life once. I didn't know where else to go. I looked at Tommy. 8 years old, tears streaming down his face, holding his head in his hands. Every instinct I had screamed at me to help him. Bring him inside, I said immediately. Let me take a look. For the next hour, I examined Tommy carefully. The headaches were concerning, given his history. I called a colleague who owed me a favor and got Tommy an emergency CT scan appointment for first thing in the morning. I'll meet you there personally, I told Mrs. Chen. We'll figure out what's going on. She grabbed my hands, tears in her eyes. Thank you. Thank you so much. You're an angel. After they left, I stood in my living room, looking at the contract on my coffee table. I thought about Tommy, about all the other kids I'd helped over the years. I thought about the 6-year-old with the brain tumor I'd been operating on when my grandmother died. She was alive today because of me. She was starting 1st grade next month. That's when it hit me. My family wanted me to feel ashamed of my choices, guilty for prioritizing my career. But I'd saved lives. Dozens of them. Children who got to grow up, have families, live full lives because I was there when they needed me most. I picked up my phone and called my attorney. Someone I'd worked with on medical malpractice cases. I need you to look into something for me, I said. Can someone legally threaten to damage your professional reputation if you don't sign a contract? There was a pause. That would potentially be extortion. Tell me exactly what's happening. I explained everything. The dinner, the contract, the threats, the conversation with Dr. Richardson's office. Don't sign anything, she said firmly. And document everything. Every text, every email, every conversation. If they follow through on their threats, we'll have grounds for a lawsuit. I don't want to sue my family. Then you need to call their bluff. People who make threats like this are usually counting on you being too afraid to stand up to them. I stayed up all night thinking about it. By morning, I'd made my decision. I texted my father. I'm not signing the contract. If you want me out of your life, that's your choice. But I won't be threatened into agreeing to it. The response was immediate. You'll regret this. Over the next few days, I waited for the fallout. I attended my meetings, performed my surgeries, went about my work expecting to be called into the Chief of Staff's office at any moment. But nothing happened. A week went by. Then 2. Dr. Richardson remained distant. But he didn't actively interfere with my work. My surgeries continued. My patients got better. Life went on. Then I got a call from Marcus. We need to talk, he said. His voice sounded different, strained. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, Claire, it's important. Can we meet for coffee? Against my better judgment, I agreed. Marcus looked terrible when he showed up at the cafe. Dark circles under his eyes. His clothes wrinkled like he'd slept in them. Diane's in trouble, he said as soon as he sat down. She needs your help. What kind of trouble? Her daughter, Emma. She's been having seizures. The doctors here can't figure out what's wrong. They want to do brain surgery, but Diane's terrified. She asked me to reach out to you. I felt like I'd been punched. She wants my help? After everything? I know. I know how messed up this is, but Emma's only 7, Claire. She's a kid. I closed my eyes, thinking of Tommy, of the 6-year-old with the brain tumor, of all the children who needed someone to fight for them. Send me her medical records, I said quietly. I'll look at them. That evening, I reviewed Emma's case files. The seizures had started 3 months ago, progressively getting worse. The scans showed an abnormality in her temporal lobe, but the local neurosurgeons couldn't agree on the best course of action. I knew exactly what it was. I'd seen it before. A rare condition that mimicked a tumor but was actually a cluster of abnormal blood vessels. The surgery was delicate, dangerous even, but I'd performed it successfully twice before. I called Marcus back. I can help her, but I need to talk to Diane first. The next day, I met my sister at a neutral location, a park bench halfway between our homes. She looked older somehow, worn down in a way I hadn't seen before. Thank you for coming, she said. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Tell me about Emma. When did the seizures start? We talked for an hour about symptoms, treatments, fears. This was the longest conversation we'd had in 3 years. Finally, I said, I can do the surgery. I've done it before. The success rate is high if it's done correctly. But I need you to be honest with me. Why did you do it? The contract, the threats. Why did you hate me so much? Diane was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I was jealous. You got out. You built something meaningful with your life. Meanwhile, I'm stuck in a marriage I hate, living the life Mom and Dad planned for me, pretending to be happy. She finally looked at me. When Grandma died and you weren't there, I was so angry. Because you had a good reason to miss it. You were saving a child's life, but I was there. And all I could think about was how much I wanted to be anywhere else. I have no excuse for being miserable, Claire. You do. That's not a competition. I know it's not. But when you walked in that night and talked about your promotion, looking so proud and accomplished, I couldn't handle it. I wanted you to hurt like I was hurting. And Mom and Dad? They're terrified you're going to end up alone. They think that if they force you to choose between family and career, you'll pick family. They don't understand that medicine isn't just your career, it's who you are. I sat with that for a moment. Then I said, I'll do Emma's surgery. But after this, I need space from all of you. Real space, not a legal contract. Just distance. Until everyone can figure out how to be family without trying to control each other. Diane nodded, tears streaming down her face. That's fair. Emma's surgery was scheduled for the following week. I spent every spare moment preparing, reviewing similar cases, consulting with colleagues. On the day of the operation, my entire family showed up at the hospital. My mother approached me in the hallway outside the surgical wing. "I'm sorry," she said. Just those 2 words, but I could see she meant them. "I was wrong. We all were." "I know," I said, "but I need you to understand something. I'm never going to be the daughter who shows up to every holiday and Sunday dinner. That's not who I am. My work will always be demanding. I will always miss things. And I need you to be okay with that, or we can't have a relationship." She nodded slowly. "I'm going to try. I can't promise I'll always understand, but I'll try." The surgery took 9 hours. It was one of the most complicated procedures I'd ever performed. But when I finally closed Emma up and checked her vitals, everything looked perfect. She woke up the next day, seizure-free. Within a week, she was back to being a normal 7-year-old, asking when she could go back to school and complaining about the hospital food. "You saved her life," Diane said, holding her daughter's hand. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me. She's family." After Emma was discharged, things slowly started to change. My family stopped expecting me to show up to everything. I stopped feeling guilty when I couldn't. We found a new rhythm, one that worked for all of us. I never signed that contract. My mother and father never mentioned it again. 6 months later, I was sitting in my office when I got a call from Dr. Richardson. "Claire, do you have a moment?" "Of course. I owe you an apology. Your mother called me 6 months ago, very upset, saying she was worried about your mental health. I should have talked to you directly instead of just avoiding you. That was unprofessional of me." "It's okay." "It's not, actually. But I wanted you to know that I've been watching your work these past months. The Emma Harper case was remarkable. I'm putting your name forward for the board. We need surgeons like you making decisions about the future of this hospital." After he hung up, I sat there for a long moment, letting it sink in. Then I looked at the photo on my desk, a picture of Tommy and Emma, both smiling and healthy, that their families had sent me. This was why I did what I did. Not for recognition or promotions or even family approval. For these kids. These lives that I got to help save. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Family dinner this Sunday? No pressure if you can't make it." I smiled and typed back, "I'll try. But I'm on call, so no promises." His response was immediate. "We'll save you a plate." It wasn't perfect. My relationship with my family would probably never be easy or simple. But it was honest now. And that was enough. That night, I stayed late at the hospital, reviewing charts for a surgery scheduled for the next morning. A 10-year-old boy with a spinal tumor. High risk, but doable. As I studied the scans, planning my approach, I felt completely at peace. This was where I belonged. This was who I was. And finally, my family understood that too.